capture of their programs, is fine art a thing of the past? And John Pascuzzi with a review of the movie Gladiator. Will it win John's favor? Now this.
How did the creator of 60 Minutes almost get fired for a stunt he pulled in Coon Rapids? You won't find out on 60 Minutes. You will find out on Conversations with 60 Minutes, Thursday at 6:30 on TV8.
Connie with the forecast. Jeff Johnson with sports at 6.
President Bush faces protest votes for both Pat Buchanan and David Duke in the South Carolina Republican primary, while the Democratic primary puts Bill Clinton's Southern strategy to the test. This is the CBS Evening News. And I'm Bob Schieffer. Good evening, everyone. Super Tuesday, the biggest cluster of primaries during this political season, comes next week. Today, it was the voters of South Carolina who took their turn at picking presidential nominees. The polls haven't closed yet, so we can't report results, but on the Democratic side, Arkansas Governor Bill Clinton was expected to win big. And President Bush was expected to win the Republican contest, but exit polling already suggests the news for the White House may not be all good. A large segment of those who say they voted in the Republican primary for Pat Buchanan also say they will not vote for the president in the fall. We're going to start with the Republican story and White House correspondent Susan Spencer.
The president is expected to win South Carolina handily, given that the powerful Republican establishment is firmly in his corner.
The crowds have been superb, and so I'm just coming at it from a position of real confidence.
But South Carolina also is the first test of David Duke. Will he siphon off votes from challenger Pat Buchanan, or will Duke votes just add up to more protests against Mr. Bush? CBS News exit polls show another protest vote. More than half the Buchanan supporters today said they were sending a message, 3/4 of the Duke voters. And only half of the Buchanan voters said they would vote for the president in the fall. Duke voters were more supportive. By far the most important issues, the economy and taxes. Welfare, stressed by Duke, mattered far less. Quotas, affirmative action, almost not at all. Today in Louisiana, where he hopes to score big on Tuesday, Buchanan picked up on the economic theme.
I think Mr. Bush's economic policies have virtually killed prosperity in America. They've cost us many, many jobs.
A stubborn Buchanan protest vote does not bode well for Mr. Bush, who is trying to look beyond South Carolina today. At a Florida naval base, he railed against defense cuts proposed by the Democrats.
I will hold the line against reckless cuts, and we will keep the United States of America strong.
Then, ending a 4-day, 7-state dash across the South, the president literally hung out the Gone Fishing sign, fishing in Alabama. Mr. Bush has declared he will win all the states on Super Tuesday, but analysts say winning isn't everything if Pat Buchanan stays in the race.
It weakens the Republican Party. The first job of a president is to unify the party base. George Bush clearly has not done that at this point.
Bush advisors believe that the very best way to do that is to shift the focus from the campaign to the presidency, declare total victory next Tuesday after the South votes, protests or not, and see what Pat Buchanan and David Duke, and especially the press, want to do about it. Bob?
So, Susan, that does raise the question, what do they do with Pat Buchanan until then and during Super Tuesday?
If only they knew. What they would like most is for Pat Buchanan to wake up Wednesday morning and say, you know, I haven't won a state. I think I better get out of this. And no one expects that. The Bush campaign views Pat Buchanan's candidacy not really as a campaign even, but more as a crusade. They expect him to stay in, and they feel that it only highlights the president's vulnerabilities. They really want him out.
All right, Susan, don't go away. Let's talk about the Democrats a little, too. Bill Clinton went into South Carolina today as the regional favorite. Today's primary came as the Democratic race seemed to be getting louder and meaner. Paul Tsongas, under pressure in the South, is moving toward a negative campaign strategy. He accused Clinton of saying anything to get elected. Tsongas now focusing on Florida, where he hopes to win by appealing to the state's large population of immigrants from the Northeast. For his part, Clinton is belittling the Tsongas campaign in his own attack ads, now running in southern Super Tuesday states. So, Susan, what do you think that is going to happen on the Democratic side? Everybody seems to think that Bill Clinton is going to win a lot of delegates on Super Tuesday for the first time ever. Is there going to be a Democratic race, in your view, after Super Tuesday's passed?
I think there probably will be. I think it looks like this, too, is going to drag out for quite a while. And I can tell you that from watching this from the White House perspective, this is the one thing that the White House seizes on as being very encouraging. They may have Pat Buchanan, but the Democrats all have each other. And as long as the Democrats don't have a nominee, it's much easier for the president to put up with this challenge from the right.
My sense of it is that Texas is going to be the strongest state on Super Tuesday for Bill Clinton. Paul Tsongas, if he has a chance to win big, it seems to me, or to make a better than expected showing, it would have to come in Florida, it seems to me.
That seems to be where the contest at the moment is focusing. Mr. Bush, of course, views this not acting as if it's not even particularly interesting to him, except from the perspective that it keeps continuing, and that they do like very much.
All right, Susan Spencer. Wyoming Democrats today began the first round of party caucuses to select their 13 convention delegates, which at this point appear to be divided three ways between Bill Clinton, Jerry Brown, and uncommitted. President Bush, by the way, says he is concerned about the North Korean freighter believed to be carrying advanced Scud missiles to Iran. At a campaign stop in Florida today, he would not discuss the situation. He said only that he is contemplating his options. A senior defense official says the Navy is ready to intercept the ship if it gets orders to do so. Still ahead on tonight's CBS Evening News, Bruce Morton's commentary on the search for political leadership in Campaign 92, and then Jim Stewart on the mock political convention that no one is mocking.
He could have had the 60-foot sailboat, the house on the 18th green. But all Ned Crowley ever really wanted was a home on the range. At Dean Witter, our retirement plans are as individual as the people who dream them.
We measure success one investor at a time.
Well, boys, how do you like the new backyard?
I get that right? Perfect.
Back in 5, Stephanie?
When you're trying to eat right, days like this are a disaster. Is this it?
Stephanie Powers talks about Kellogg's Nutri-Grain.
The only time I really control what I eat is at breakfast, and the whole grain in Kellogg's Nutri-Grain gives me a natural start.
No sugar added, no preservatives, nothing fake. No matter what I eat later, at breakfast I call the shots.
Naturally good. Nutri-Grain, the natural place to start.
My granny's spaghetti recipe. With ordinary grated topping? Oops. Some are 1/3 fats and fillers, but Kraft is 100% grated Parmesan for 100% great taste. Granny would approve.
I think I'll make fresh dressing.
Good seasons?
Mm-hmm.
Which oil?
Pick a light one.
Dressing's great.
Good seasons, you make it fresh, you make it best.
The security chief of the Israeli embassy in Ankara, Turkey, was killed today in a car bombing. 3 other people were injured, one critically. 2 Islamic groups claim responsibility. The attack comes less than a week after the bombing of a synagogue in which 1 person was hurt. About 3,000 people turned up today at a pro-apartheid rally in South Africa. As many as 50,000 people had been expected. The small showing came just 10 days before a referendum on ending South Africa's white supremacy policies. Mike Sullivan.
Conservative white South Africans marched through Pretoria today, calling for a no vote in the upcoming referendum on President F.W. de Klerk's reforms. They marched to say no to the African National Congress and Nelson Mandela. They marched to turn the clock back to apartheid.
You can't say yes to the communists, okay? Is that clear?
Okay, but what was clear today from groups like the Afrikaner resistance movement were the stark images of another time. The rally was called to showcase conservative unity, but the poor turnout showed the right wing can't match President F.W. de Klerk's aggressive campaign. This week, de Klerk has pressed the flesh, telling whites to vote yes. A no vote, he says, will lead to more bloodshed, the reimposition of sanctions, and South Africa becoming an economic wasteland. But the Conservatives say de Klerk already has ruined the country by merely talking to the ANC and Mandela.
A yes vote is a vote for a government who has lost its nerve and the will to govern.
The Conservatives had one small success, though, when horsemen galloped through the police lines. But the right will need more than horsepower to win the race for white votes. Mike Sullivan for CBS News, Johannesburg.
Fierce fighting continues to rage in the disputed enclave of Nagorno-Karabakh in the former Soviet Union. At least 42 people there reportedly have been killed since yesterday in the latest round of combat between Azerbaijani forces and Armenian defenders. The desire for independence felt so strongly in the Soviet Union is spread to the United Kingdom. Scotland is the latest to experience breakaway fever, and it may vote soon on whether to split off from Britain. Barry Peterson now with that.
They waved the Scottish flag and sang Scotland's unofficial anthem at the rugby match today. Rise up, it says, and be a nation again.
Well, it has to happen, does it? We're a proud nation.
The last time Scotland got serious about independence was 1979. There was a referendum and independence lost. But separatist leaders say that was then and this is now. And meeting today, the pro-independence Scottish National Party was reveling in polls showing 50% of Scots now favor independence.
This is a contest between David and Goliath. But of course we comfort ourselves with the thought that the last time David and Goliath matched up, Goliath ended flat on his back.
The nationalists recruited the man who once served Her Majesty.
Bond. James Bond.
Scottish-born Sean Connery made ads insisting that Scotland can float to prosperity by laying claim to the North Sea oil.
Now, Scotland's got loads of this stuff. We've had loads of this stuff for years. But the money goes down south.
That message hits home here, where factories are closing, the recession is claiming jobs, shops are shuttered. Even so, in the village pubs, it is a country divided. Not everyone is sure Scotland can go it alone.
So we've got whiskey and we've got oil, and that's it, and stop. Where's the industries? And who's going to buy this stuff anyway?
And Britain's Prime Minister is trying to face down the chill wind of secession by pleading for union.
Let us respond to such anxieties as Scotland voices within our Constitution and not use them as a pretext to break that Constitution apart.
Still, more and more, people here wonder if it's time for a change, time for a Scotland that is no longer ready to pledge all to England and empire. Barry Peterson, CBS News, Edinburgh.
I use a shampoo for dandruff, but my scalp still itches like crazy.
You need new Scalpicin, the revolutionary scalp medicine for deep scalp itch, not ordinary dandruff. Scalpicin is not a shampoo. It's a clear liquid you don't wash away like shampoo. Apply Scalpicin anytime for deep scalp itch relief, with medicine chosen by dermatologists over all these dandruff shampoo formulas. Scalpicin penetrates to relieve the itch and help prevent flaking.
The itch is gone.
New Scalpicin, the scalp medicine for deep scalp itch.
I'm alive, William Hines. I'm alive, Michael Hines.
For a free list of cars with airbags, see your Allstate agent.
Everybody needs some money sometime.
To send money fast, call 1-800-CALL-CASH or come to any Western Union location.
Something in my heart just told me by some
Western Union, fastest way to send money.
See my granddaughter. Thank you, Jesus.
Think about your daydreams, what you would do if you won $1 million out of the blue. Miracles can happen for you. Publishers Clearinghouse, the house where dreams come true.
I'm Charles Carroll. Republicans who say their conservative president isn't conservative enough. That's our cover story this Sunday morning.
There is a report tonight that British doctors have isolated the gene that causes asthma. The Sunday Times of London says the discovery could eradicate asthma within the next 5 years. Asthma afflicts millions with wheezing and breathlessness and can prove fatal. Israel refused again today to put a freeze on settlements in the occupied territories in exchange for U.S. loan guarantees. Prime Minister Shamir said he would not accept a situation where America dictates Israeli policy. The stakes for Israel in this standoff are very high, and Bob Simon has a report.
It's a buyer's market every Tuesday in Nazareth. New Russian immigrants sell old trinkets to make ends meet. Nearly 400,000 have come to Israel and found poor housing, no jobs, slim pickings. Israel is pinning its hope for their future and its own on America co-signing $10 billion in loans. But the future is now for another group of Israelis. Behind fences that keep Palestinians out, latter-day pioneers live the good life in the occupied territories. By some estimates, the government spent more than $1 billion last year for settlers on new homes, new schools, new roads. That's 15% of the civilian budget for 2% of the population. Can Israel subsidize the settlements and absorb the immigrants? Prime Minister Shamir says it must.
The purpose of absorption is a sacred duty of our people. And our national duties are sacred at the same time.
But what's sacred to Shamir is profane to the Americans. The Bush administration wants to make absolutely sure no funds secured by loan guarantees wind up directly or indirectly building settlements on the West Bank. As one Washington official put it, Shamir is going to learn the American way. There's no such thing as a free lunch. The only free lunches in Israel these days are at soup kitchens. More and more Israelis can't find jobs, while settlers run resort hotels. Plans to fix crowded highways inside Israel are scrapped to build more roads to nowhere on the West Bank. Even the army had to ask for donations in a telethon to train Russian Jews to become soldiers.
The priorities are political, that they want to annex the occupied territories instead of investing in the Israeli society.
Many Russians sail into the port of Haifa the same way those first pioneers arrived 100 years ago. Israel will be stronger than it's ever been if they're absorbed. And the Americans are saying, we'll help, but you have to make a choice. Bob Simon, CBS News, Tel Aviv.
What's with the fifth glass?
It's Sunsweet prune juice with prune pulp, hon.
Be still my heart.
It has bits of real prune. For more fruit flavor.
Tastes richer.
No, costs about the same as regular Sunsweet. Sunsweet prune juice with prune pulp.
I'll take the special.
I'll take the special.
I'll take the special.
And you should too. The monthly specials at True Value hardware stores, like Contico Tough Crates clear storage organizers for just $6.88 each. They really cut through the clutter, and in March, they're just $6.88 each while supplies last. That's just one of the terrific specials at True Value, the neighborhood hardware stores with national buying power.
I'll take the special.
This was me with dull gray hair. I looked washed up. Then I found a whole new way to make my gray look great.
Introducing a new kind of shampoo from the makers of Just for Men hair care called Great Looking Gray. Great Looking Gray does more than clean and condition. It gets rid of the dullness, even yellow buildup, brings out the real silver.
What a difference it makes.
New Great Looking Gray shampoo. And for stubborn yellow, new Great Looking Gray anti-yellow treatment.
It could start in your office, in your home, over lunch. But now, wherever heartburn starts, this is where it ends. Introducing new Maalox Heartburn Relief Formula. No other antacid works like this one to put out heartburn.
Most of the time, political reporting looks ahead, but tonight on the weekend before Super Tuesday, we're also going to look back at this week's primary in Maryland, where the so-called Republican protest vote was considerably larger than expected. That is tonight's Washington Notebook, dissecting the protest vote. What does it mean? Who does it help?
92!
For supporters of Pat Buchanan, primary night brought good news. 30% of Maryland's Republicans voted for their candidate, even though he never showed up for a rally.
Obviously, they're sending a message to George Bush that he has to do something, but they're also saying that we need to make a fundamental change, and I think Buchanan was speaking to that directly.
Keith Haller has been polling Maryland for 3 presidential elections now.
Maryland was a great reflector, a great sign for what's going to happen, I think, throughout the Republican primaries here. People are running away from George Bush. The more the economy looks bad, the more Republicans are going to abandon ship.
And economic news in Maryland, like so many states, has not been very encouraging. Double-digit unemployment in some districts, flat home sales, 10% of all commercial property in the hands of banks because of foreclosures, and Haller released a poll this weekend which clearly showed the impact of the economy on Republican votes. Only 14% of Republicans felt the economy was getting better. 42% felt it was getting worse. And a full 49% told poll takers they would prefer a candidate other than George Bush in November. An exit poll conducted on Election Day by CBS News also showed that voters who supported Buchanan did so because of the poor economy. That and the president's breaking of his no new taxes pledge are what conservatives like Senate candidate Alan Keyes blame for Republican unhappiness.
And there are all kinds of problems with the budget, with congressional perquisites and institutional corruption and that kind of thing that then creates a chance because people are looking for an alternative.
Mainstream Republicans like Congresswoman Connie Morella blame the president's problems on a seeming inability to explain what he stands for.
I found that people felt remote from government in general. They felt that about the White House. They felt there was a need for an agenda.
There is no question the president's advisors were stunned by Buchanan's support in what the Bush campaign had considered a safe state. But what lies ahead could be even more unsettling for the Bush team. Polls in Maryland now suggest 40% of those who voted for Buchanan may switch to a Democrat in November, and that a conservative Democrat like Paul Tsongas could carry the state against the president.
President Bush may well feel that in hearing this so-called message that he should veer over to the right. And I do not think that's what the American public want. They simply want stand tall, move ahead as a leader, and don't move to the right.
Whatever the case, the apparent White House strategy at this point is not to broaden the middle ground, but to crowd Buchanan on the right. We have more on that in Bruce Morton's personal commentary.
President Bush this week announced that he had been wrong to break his promise and raise taxes. Wrong not because breaking your word was wrong, nor because raising taxes was bad economics. Wrong because it was bad for Mr. Bush politically. Look at all the flack it's taking, the president said. It's political grief. This is leadership? Presidents, leaders, are supposed to do what they think is right and be prepared to take some political flack. Otherwise, they're just politicians following polls. And it may not even be very good politics. Mr. Bush is saying these days whatever he thinks will please the right wing of his party, but some of what he's saying may hurt him later on among moderates and independents. The Democrats, meanwhile, are having a political rarity, a fight about ideas. Paul Tsongas and Bill Clinton really have differences about the economy. Small tax cut for the middle class paid for by higher taxes on the rich, Clinton, versus targeted capital gains tax cuts and other pro-business incentives, Tsongas. They'll debate those in the South this weekend, and then in the Middle West, where 2 states which really need some new economic thinking, Michigan and Illinois, hold their primaries on March 17th. Those states are examples of the underlying economic problems the United States faces: aging infrastructure, the loss of manufacturing jobs, problems which go way beyond this recession. Wouldn't it be interesting to have 2 candidates actually talking about problems facing real voters and maybe even offering solutions to them? Bruce Morton, CBS News, Washington.
NASA's brand new space shuttle Endeavour was rolled out of its hangar at the Kennedy Space Center today in preparation for its maiden voyage in May. The $2 billion shuttle replaces the Challenger, which blew up just after liftoff 6 years ago. Endeavour is expected to be NASA's last shuttle.
Administration announced a major retail expansion in 25 U.S. cities.
When I see a company that looks like a good investment, I check it out myself.
We make it easier to follow your own lead.
At Charles Schwab, I can get quotes, financial news, and when I make a trade, commission savings.
Always there to give you just the help you need.
Help yourself at Schwab today.
Draw from the facts. There's a way to maintain regularity without drugs. It starts here. A high-fiber diet, which can include Kellogg's All Bran, an excellent source of wheat bran fiber, may help you stay regular, drug-free. And there's a lot to be said for that, naturally. A high-fiber diet on Kellogg's All Bran for drug-free regularity.
Doctor.
Is it right for me? Habitrol.
It's a patch. Well, you know, the patch.
Habitrol.
Habitrol.
You know, Habitrol. It's a patch.
It's new.
Habitrol.
Ask your doctor about Habitrol, nicotine transdermal system.
Thanks, doctor.
Introducing Maxwell House Light. It tastes as rich as Maxwell House coffee, but only has half the caffeine. So rich, you'll just think of it as Maxwell House. New Maxwell House Light. All the rich taste, half the caffeine.
Finally tonight, college students seem to be showing little enthusiasm for politics in this election year. Less than half of all 18 to 24-year-olds are registered to vote. But in Lexington, Virginia today, student activism was alive and well. Jim Stewart has our report.
Every 4 years, the kids at Virginia's Washington and Lee University put a little party back in the political party process. The idea is to hold a mock convention for the party out of power and attempt to correctly pick the eventual nominee. Next to spring break and the annual fancy dress ball, it's the biggest thing on campus.
I think it's a pretty huge deal. Everybody's up and dressed up, and it's 10 o'clock on a Saturday morning, and everybody's here.
It looks and feels like a real political convention. Security is tight. Some delegates were bored. The hall was too hot, and the speeches too long.
You know, George Bush and Pat Buchanan deserve each other. And come November, we're going to throw them and that entire Republican crowd clear out of the White House.
There is an irony here, sadly reflected in the election habits of much of America. Many of the young people here are registered, but have never voted in a real election. But today they listened closely and played their roles with flair.
The great state of Maryland, home of lacrosse and hammerjacks, the largest nightclub in the East Coast,
And they were moved when Democratic icons called them to arms. Moved most of all, perhaps, by this year's leading mock candidate.
But, Mr. President, if reform is what you want, how about reforming the Pentagon? How about reforming your system for picking Supreme Court justices if you want reform?
In the end, the kids anointed Governor Bill Clinton of Arkansas, who no doubt prays he should be so lucky when his party's elders meet for real this July. Jim Stewart, CBS News, Lexington, Virginia.
And that's the news. We'll see you again tomorrow on Face the Nation when our guest will be the Republican presidential candidate, Pat Buchanan. I'm Bob Schieffer, CBS News in New York. Good night.
When Villanova battles Syracuse. Then the Big Ten heats up when second-ranked Indiana battles Michigan and their Fab Five freshmen tomorrow on CBS.
This is CBS.
Next, live on the TV8 News at 6, a mother accused of allowing her 4-year-old son to be beaten near death makes her first court appearance.
Concern in Iowa that the fine arts may be fading from our schools. TV8's Martin Augustine with that story. And voters in South Carolina are deciding the future of Iowa Senator Tom Harkin.
Weekend weather brings some big changes our way.
And in sports, we'll bring you up to date on the Hawkeyes and the Cyclones.
Stay with us. TV8 News is next.
If you're looking to buy a hot new compact truck, think twice before you buy. Ford Ranger is America's best-selling compact truck. Think about economy. Ford Ranger gets the best gas mileage of any vehicle in its class. Think about